When we look at a national flag today, it's incredibly easy to just assume it appeared fully formed. Like, you'd think it was just always meant to be exactly that way, right? But the reality is actually much more complex and honestly a lot more fascinating. Today, we're exploring the evolution of the Indian tricolor. And I want you to look at this not just as your standard history lesson, but as a really remarkable 40-year journey of iterative design. We're going to track exactly how a nation actively forged its visual identity, literally drafting and redrafting over 4 pivotal decades.
So let's start with a massive question. How do you even begin to design a symbol for a billion people? I mean, just think about the sheer, staggering scale of that design problem for a second. You're tasked with creating a single, unifying visual identity that has to perfectly capture the aspirations, the historic struggles, and the limitless future of this incredibly vast and diverse population. We're talking thousands of distinct cultures, hundreds of languages, and completely different geographic realities. How on earth do you find the right colors, the exact right shapes, and the most unifying emblems to bring all of that together under one piece of flying cloth? Well, that is the exact monumental challenge the creators of the Indian flag had to figure out. All right, let's dive straight in. To make sense of this whole 40-year process, here is our quick roadmap of the different iterations. Think of this as our mental cheat sheet. We've got the first local prototypes in 1906, then Madame Kama's flag in 1907, the Home Rule era in 1917, Pingali Venkaya and Gandhi's collaboration in 1921, the Charkha tricolor in 1931, and finally the Ashoka Chakra version in 1947. Okay, let's look closely at these earliest drafts of freedom. The very first known Indian national flag was actually hoisted locally in 1906 at Parsi Bagan Square in Calcutta, which is Kolkata today, by the way. And as you can see, the core design featured these simple horizontal bands of green, yellow, and red. It was a really bold first step. Then, literally just 1 year later, in 1907, Madame Bikaji Kama takes the movement to the global stage. She unfurls an Indian flag in Stuttgart, Germany. Now, her flag relied on a very similar foundation to that 1906 version, but she introduced some crucial adjustments to the emblems inside those bands. It's just fascinating to see how the basic concept of that horizontal layout was already being tweaked and iterated upon within just 12 months, moving from a local protest square all the way to a major international platform in Europe. Fast forward a decade and a completely different attempt emerges. By 1917, India was deep in the intense, mobilizing period of the Home Rule movement, and the political climate at the time demanded a totally new visual identity. Prominent leaders like Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Annie Besant used this new flag, which was a massive departure from those 1906 and 1907 prototypes. It featured alternating red and green stripes, but notice the Union Jack up in the corner. That reflects a very specific political goal of the time: dominion status within the British Empire. This stark contrast really just reminds us that the visual representation of the independence movement was still very much in flux, right? It was continuously adapting to the rapidly changing strategies of the time. Now, what's really brilliant here is the collaborative process. By 1921, the design had shifted away from individual statements and became highly, highly collaborative. Step 1. Pingali Venkaya presents a new proposal featuring just red and green, colors specifically chosen to represent the major communities of the subcontinent. But actually, the design didn't stop there. Step 2, Mahatma Gandhi reviews the concept and suggests adding a band of white to represent all the other communities, symbolizing a unified, peaceful nation. And then step 3, this is crucial, Gandhi brings in a completely new, unifying visual element, the charkha, or the spinning wheel. This tells such a vivid story. This iconic symbol wasn't just drafted by a single person in a closed room, it was the product of direct collaboration, merging different ideas to create something far more inclusive. So jump ahead exactly 10 years from that vital collaboration, and we hit a massive historical milestone. In 1931, the Indian National Congress officially adopted a formalized version of the flag. This specific iteration locked in the saffron, white, and green tricolor layout and firmly anchored that spinning wheel right in the very center of the white band. This is an absolutely profound moment in the journey because this 1931 design became the most important direct predecessor to the flag that represents India today. After decades of trial and error, the core layout we all recognize had finally taken its enduring shape. But wait, the design wasn't completely finished. As the long-fought reality of actual independence rapidly approached in 1947, one final, absolutely critical update was required for the global stage. Think about it. After decades of the spinning wheels sitting at the center of this evolving design, acting as the anchor of the movement, what final symbol was chosen to replace it? What would represent a newly independent nation moving confidently into the modern future? The answer? 24. Specifically, the 24 spokes of the navy blue Ashoka chakra. The spinning wheel was officially retired, and this ancient symbol, representing the wheel of the law of Dharma, was permanently placed dead center in the flag.
So here is the crucial takeaway. On July 22nd, 1947, literally just weeks before independence became a reality, the Constituent Assembly officially adopted the present Indian national flag. Remember that staggering 40-year design problem we talked about at the very beginning of this explainer? Well, this was the exact moment it was finally solved. The iteration was complete, the horizontal bands, the specifically calibrated colors, and the 24-spoked navy blue Ashoka chakra were permanently locked in as the enduring symbol of a free nation.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the profound meaning behind those final, careful design choices. Because these colors weren't merely aesthetic, They were deeply, deeply symbolic of the nation's absolute core beliefs. Saffron at the top stands for courage and sacrifice, directly honoring decades of struggle. The white in the middle represents truth and peace, meant to guide the nation's path forward. And the green at the bottom symbolizes growth, auspiciousness, and the incredible fertility of the land. Every single element here was deliberately selected to project the fundamental values of this new nation out to the rest of the world. Which brings us to the triumphant culmination of our entire timeline. On August 15th, 1947, India gained its independence. And on that incredibly momentous day, the finalized tricolor, the ultimate culmination of those early 1906 prototypes, Madame Kama's bold iteration, the Home Rule movement's adaptations, Venkaiah and Gandhi's inclusive collaboration, and the Constituent Assembly's final polish, it was hoisted for the very first time as independent India's national flag. It was just a soaring moment where a piece of iterative design truly became the heartbeat of a nation. We have seen how 40 years of meticulous thought, immense struggle, and creative collaboration resulted in a literal masterpiece of symbolic design. So as we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to ask you, how do symbols of courage, truth, and growth represent your own community right now? Look around you. The symbols we use to define ourselves have incredible power and often a deeply fascinating history hidden just beneath the surface. Keep exploring, keep asking questions about the world around you, and I absolutely can't wait to guide you through our next topic.